Earth is hiding archipelagos so bizarre that every definition you have of reality will be shattered. An abandoned, deadly minefield left over from a war suddenly transformed into a safe haven for tens of thousands of penguins. An island holding a Stone Age tribe for the past 60,000 years, ready to rain down arrows on anyone who dares to come near. And near the end of our journey, there's a deep ocean trench where humanity first came face to face with the legendary Kraken in the flesh. This isn't an optical illusion. We're talking about coordinates completely isolated from the rest of the world. Places that allowed life to evolve on its own terms, creating lands so unique it's hard to believe they even exist. And our first stop looks like a piece of an alien planet dropped right in the middle of the ocean. Isolated in the northwestern Indian Ocean, near the Gulf of Aden, the Socotra archipelago deceives the eye with its cracked limestone plateaus, bizarrely shaped barren mountains, and eerily blue coastlines. On that dry, rocky terrain, dragon's blood trees rise up like UFOs crashed into the earth. Their canopies spread out like giant umbrellas, and the crimson sap inside makes the entire forest feel like a living legend. This extreme isolation has turned it into an evolutionary laboratory, where 37% of its plant species, 90% of its reptiles, and 95% of its land snails are found nowhere else on Earth. Amidst wind-sculpted rock valleys and breathtakingly empty beaches, life on Socotra feels like a world that single-handedly rewrote the biological rules of our planet. If Socotra is an alien planet, the Galápagos is where Earth was still writing the very first draft of life. Located about 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador, these islands were forgotten by the world long enough for nature to experiment with life forms found nowhere else. The Galápagos is a living experiment shaped by volcanic terrain, jagged rocky shores, and cold ocean currents, a setting that forced every species to forge its own evolutionary path to survive. Up in the highlands, giant Galápagos tortoises carry shells that have uniquely adapted to each island, as if every body is a living map of survival. Then there's the marine iguana, the only seagoing lizard in the world that dives into the ocean to feast on seaweed and algae. And when Darwin's finches, sea lions, giant tortoises, and marine iguanas all share the same frame, the Galapagos truly becomes a living museum of evolution. However, our next destination will truly test your imagination: the Dragon Island of Komodo. Set within Indonesia's volcanic island chain, the scorched savanna hills, thorny brush, and cracked earth create a world so harsh that every single frame feels like a warning. Right here, around 5,700 Komodo dragons still roam, a massive lizard found nowhere else on the planet. They crawl silently, raising their heads and flicking their tongues to taste the air, turning these arid trails into the domain of an apex predator that humans cannot afford to underestimate. The stark contrast between beauty and terror lies right here. Sheer emerald bays and razor-sharp, jagged ridges in Padar, alongside glowing beaches that sit right next door to the land of dragons. But even the Komodo dragon isn't the strangest creature hidden in the oceans of this journey. Wait until we reach the abyssal depths that actually harbour a legendary kraken in the flesh. Before that, let's head to the Falkland Islands, where a deadly minefield suddenly turned into a paradise for tens of thousands of penguins. Sitting alone in the perpetually windswept South Atlantic, this place hides an irony so profound, it's almost unbelievable. Following the 1982 conflict, landmines turned many of the Falkland beaches into strict no-go zones for humans. That very danger unintentionally created a sanctuary for penguins for decades. Because they are so light, they can freely walk and hop across these explosive-laden lands without setting them off. Today, the mines have been cleared, but the story still makes the Falklands one of the most bizarre examples of how war can accidentally carve out a space for nature to rebound. If Raja Ampat is the ocean's masterpiece, then the Rock Island's southern lagoon is a turquoise labyrinth that Earth has hidden away in the Pacific. From above, this place reveals 445 uninhabited limestone islands, many shaped like giant mushrooms sprouting straight out of a cyan lagoon. What makes it truly special is how the stone, arches, caves, channels, coves, and coral reefs intertwine, turning the entire area into an oceanic maze, with each turn revealing a different shade of blue. coral reefs wrap around the islands, making the water below shift from pale aqua to deep indigo, like a living sheet of glass changing colours with every angle of flight. Beneath that surface lies a dense ecosystem, home to over 385 species of coral, 746 species of fish, manta rays, and at least 13 species of sharks. And then there are the famous isolated marine lakes, like Jellyfish Lake, which holds millions of harmless, incredibly friendly golden jellyfish. Prepare to be amazed by the Aldabra Atoll, a place so wild it drags us straight back to the prehistoric era. Deep in the Indian Ocean, Aldabra is one of the world's largest raised coral atolls, featuring 4 massive coral islands embracing a shallow central lagoon. It's exactly this remoteness, the rugged terrain, and the sheer lack of freshwater that made it nearly impossible for humans to conquer, allowing Aldabra to preserve one of the most undisturbed ecosystems left on Earth. On top of razor-sharp champignon limestone, you'll find the giant Aldabra tortoises. With a population of around 152,000, it's the largest gathering of these reptiles in the world. Every scene is almost completely pristine, a place where nature still operates as if humans never even existed. And if you think this is the absolute limit of wildlife, just wait until we get to Crozet, home to penguin colonies once so massive that, from above, the very ground seemed to be moving. If the Aldabra Atoll wasn't primal enough for you, let's move on to our next archipelago. This is a gloomy gash in the North Atlantic, where nature uses wind, clouds, and cliffs to shrink humanity down to size. The semi-autonomous Faroe Islands, part of the Kingdom of Denmark, consist of 18 rugged volcanic islands torn apart by narrow straits and deep, cold, grey fjords. Here, the weather isn't just a backdrop, it's the main character. Fog can blanket everything in minutes, rain lashes across the mountain ridges, and the North Atlantic winds are fierce enough to make every journey feel precarious. And amidst this fierce landscape, tiny villages like Gassadalur, Saksun, or Gjogv huddle against valleys, harbours and waterfalls, making the Faroes feel like a place in which humans never really conquered nature. They're just allowed to stay. The absolute edge of the Arctic is most visible in Svalbard, Norway. a place where time is distorted and seemingly forgotten by Earth. The landscape here is chillingly empty. No forest cover, no soft colours, just wind, ice, grey seas, an endless horizon. The polar night can plunge Svalbard into darkness for weeks on end, while summer brings the midnight sun, twisting time itself as if this place exists completely outside the normal rhythm of our planet. There are an estimated 3,000 polar bears across the Svalbard and Barents Sea region, with a portion of them staying in Svalbard year-round. It's an archipelago so incredibly wild that every single shot feels like you're standing on the very last edge of the planet. Heading over to the Azores, this is an archipelago that makes the Atlantic look as if it was just ripped open by volcanoes, leaving 9 deep green islands scattered across the sea. Perched on the mid-Atlantic ridge, this Portuguese archipelago consists of 9 volcanic islands stretching about 600 kilometres between North America and Europe. The blue eyes of an ancient planet stare back from the massive craters of São Miguel. These eyes are the deep blue lakes of Sete Cidades, Lagoa de Fogo and Furnas. This island literally breathes fire, as subterranean heat still rises in Furnas through hot springs, fumaroles, and geothermal vents. The sharp contrast is striking. Above ground is soft, wet, moss-covered nature. Below is hard basalt, while the cold ocean relentlessly batters the island's base. Mount Pico is the highest point in Portugal at 2,351 metres, piercing the clouds like a colossal volcanic cone. St Kilda doesn't look like an archipelago meant for humans. It feels like a jagged edge torn from the North Atlantic by wind and wave. Isolated off the coast of the Hebrides, this group includes main islands like Hirta, Dun, Soe and Borare, and has been uninhabited since 1930. The entire world has stepped back, leaving only rock, sea, and biting wind. The most overwhelming sight here are the sea cliffs, some of the highest in Europe, rising straight out of the ocean like massive walls, locking away the horizon. On those cliffs, nearly 1 million seabirds blacken the sky and the rocky slopes. Puffins, gannets and fulmars are packed so densely that the entire archipelago seems to vibrate with the sound of wings and cries. But the most chilling part of St Kilda is its history of survival. Humans clung to life here for around 4,000 years, surviving on seabirds, meager crops, and livestock, before the final 36 residents were forced to evacuate because life was simply no longer sustainable. The Tristan da Cunha Island group is the kind of place that makes the word remote feel like an understatement. It's a volcanic cluster sitting utterly alone in the South Atlantic, completely cut off from flight paths and virtually all normal rhythms of life. This island group is a British overseas territory, featuring the main islands of Tristan, Nightingale, Inaccessible, and Guff, each lying incredibly far apart from the others. To get to Tristan, you have to take a boat from Cape Town, and the distance to the nearest city spans roughly 2,810 kilometres of open ocean. From offshore, Queen Mary's Peak rises 2,062 metres like a massive volcanic cone. At its base lies a tiny settlement squeezed between cliffs, green grass, and the vast ocean. This is the most remote inhabited island in the world, home to about 250 people who rely on infrequent supply ships and their own ability to survive in total isolation. But it's not until you touch down in South Georgia and the South Sandwich Islands that you truly understand what unbelievable life looks like. This sub-Antarctic island group is the ultimate wild edge of the planet. South Georgia is the main island, stretching about 170 kilometres, with more than half of its surface permanently covered in ice, while the South Sandwich Islands are a chain of 11 volcanic islands located even further southeast, deep in the South Atlantic. The sheer scale of life on South Georgia is mind-boggling. It's home to around 5 million seals and 65 million breeding birds across 30 different species. On the beaches of South Georgia, king penguins, fur seals, and elephant seals pack the shores, turning the line between land and sea into a wildly overwhelming spectacle. Meanwhile, the South Sandwich Islands hold one of the world's largest populations of chin-strap penguins, with around 1.3 million breeding pairs. Stepping into South America, the Tierra del Fuego archipelago represents the absolute end of the world, where the ocean begins to swallow every horizon. The most incredible thing is that at the southern tip of South America, the mainland is no longer solid. It's torn into countless islands, freezing channels, and barren mountains sitting right on the water. The forests here are nothing like tropical jungles. These are sub-Antarctic forests, low, dark, damp, and bent by the wind, growing right against the frigid coastlines as if desperately clinging to the edge of the earth. Behind those forests lie barren mountains, glaciers, and grey waters, creating a landscape that boasts forests, ice, and ocean all at once. An incredibly rare combination for a single archipelago. The wind in Tierra del Fuego practically sculpts the entire land. It sweeps across the steppes, churns the ocean surface, and makes every single view feel wild, cold, and restless. Coming to the most pristine area on our list, New Zealand's DOC calls this one of the least modified environments in the world. Plus, every single island is a national nature reserve with the highest level of protection. These are the New Zealand sub-Antarctic islands, the coldest edge of New Zealand tossed into the Southern Ocean. This archipelago consists of 5 incredibly remote island groups: the Snares, Bounty, Antipodes, Auckland, and Campbell. The skies and cliffs practically belong to seabirds. There are 126 bird species here, 8 of which breed exclusively on these islands and nowhere else on Earth. Over at the Snares, penguins, albatrosses, and various seabirds pack the low forests and rocky shores. To reach these islands, it usually takes a 2-day boat ride from Bluff, and access requires strict permits, which only amplifies that hard to believe it's real feeling. Would you want to live on an island located a staggering 3,200 kilometers away from human civilization? The Kerguelen Islands seem entirely quarantined by the ocean, so far removed that they're literally called the Desolation Islands. Situated over 3,200 kilometers from the nearest populated area, every journey in and out has to be made by ship. The entire archipelago is essentially severed from the rest of the world. The climate here is utterly brutal. It rains or snows for most of the year, and the westerlies blow constantly, sometimes exceeding 150 kilometers per hour and peaking at over 200 kilometers per hour. Human presence on Kerguelen is reduced to tiny dots at the Port-au-Français station. Only scientific and technical teams live in rotation amidst the wind, ice, rock, and freezing sea. As a result, the wildlife here has become a deeply solitary part of this desolate archipelago. If you think life can't possibly survive in the harshest places on the planet, The Crozet Islands will prove you wrong in the craziest way imaginable. Sitting alone in the perpetually stormy southern Indian Ocean, this volcanic cluster endures gales so violent that winds over 100 kilometers per hour batter the islands for a third of the year. Crozet was once known for hosting one of the most massive king penguin colonies in the world, but a mysterious collapse in their population makes this place feel even more haunting today. Île aux Cochons in Crozet was once recognized by UNESCO as having the largest king penguin colony on Earth, turning the entire barren landscape into a massive, writhing sea of creatures stretching to the horizon when viewed from above. Right off those black shores, pods of killer whales, orcas have developed a truly spine-chilling hunting strategy. But our next location will really give you goosebumps. It's the first place humanity ever encountered the Kraken. And while it technically belongs to Tokyo, it's completely isolated. Welcome to the Ogasawara Islands. Stranded in the middle of the Pacific, over 1,000 kilometers from Tokyo, the only way to get here is a grueling 24-hour ocean voyage because there are absolutely no airports. Yet right within the borders of an ultra-modern nation lies a Galápagos of the East, so pristine that over 90% of its terrestrial species can't be found anywhere else on Earth. Here, life evolves by its own bizarre rules. Ancient woody plants sprout from volcanic rock, and the critically endangered bonin flying fox rules the dense forest. Even more astonishing, the deep waters surrounding the archipelago are the realm of ocean monsters. Here, scientists made history by first encountering and filming the legendary giant squid, the Kraken, in the deep sea. Our next destination pushes the wild even further into the South Pacific. The Lord Howe Island Group, a solitary speck in the Tasman Sea, is famous for biological mysteries that baffle the entire scientific community. The peak of this place's absurdity is Ball's Pyramid, the tallest volcanic sea stack on the planet. Towering 562 meters high, it stands like a colossal black sword piercing the sky. It was on this barren, completely waterless spire that, in 2001, researchers discovered the tree lobster, a massive, critically endangered stick insect thought to be extinct since 1920, somehow surviving on a single bush. More incredibly, this island harbours the southernmost coral reef on Earth, creating a surreal, crystal-clear underwater ecosystem that humans are only allowed to visit under a strict cap of 400 people at a time. Now we're heading to the Bay of Bengal to visit a wild archipelago that traps an isolated Stone Age world right in the middle of the 21st century. Welcome to the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, a stretch of hundreds of tropical islands hiding some of the most dangerous and mysterious forbidden boundaries on the planet. Within this archipelago is North Sentinel Island, home to a primitive tribe that has lived there for 60,000 years, fiercely rejecting any and all contact with the outside world. The crazy truth is, to protect their survival, the government established a strict exclusion zone around the island, making it a legally impenetrable territory. Right in this same archipelago is Barren Island, the only active volcano in all of South Asia, spewing black smoke and glowing red lava day and night into the crystal clear ocean. Before that, we're heading to another island, a place where Earth hides an underwater kingdom so bursting with life, it's hard to believe it's even real. Nestled off the northwestern tip of Papua, Raja Ampat is made up of over 1,500 smaller islands, anchoring four main giants: Waigeo, Batanta, Salawati, and Mizul. The entire archipelago feels like a world the ocean kept secret for far too long. The entire archipelago feels like a world the ocean kept secret for far too long. But the real magic happens beneath the surface. Fringing reefs, barrier reefs, patch reefs, and atolls all come together to build a living coral metropolis, home to over 1,600 species of reef fish and more than 550 types of coral. In waters so impossibly blue they look surreal, schools of fish sweep over the reefs like swirling storms of colour, while countless tiny creatures keep this entire underwater world in constant, breathtaking motion. Earth has never stopped being forgiving, but it has also never stopped challenging human imagination. In its most remote, hidden corners, amidst roaring oceans or eternal ice, nature quietly operates by its own proud, primal rules. When this screen goes dark, will you truly believe that you are living in a world full of undeciphered miracles? If you love this wild world as much as I do, join me on this journey by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel.